Okay, I want to propose a Booktube slow read tag for people to nominate those novels that they think should be read slowly. As I'm sure you've all noticed, an awful lot of novels get recommended on Booktube. There are bookathons full of novels, there are book hauls where people have this many novels, and I suspect quite a lot of novels are read too quickly. Now, often prose dictates the pace of reading, but I think, like poetry, sometimes it's almost our metabolism. The world is so fast now. Even if we're sitting in our rooms, there's so much on our minds um, that we're forced to read quickly. We think we need to get to the end. Often that's the case because people want to find out what happens. But there are other novels where, from the first sentence, we should really take it at a slower pace because we want to. The cliche would we want to savor every word. I don't think that's the case because often, it's been shown we actually don't read every word. That's not how the brain reads text. But often we don't obey punctuation and don't obey the full stop. We read in a kind of run-on mode, uh, and I think that means that we miss the beats of the sentence, and that's something that the author, the novelist, has paid a lot of attention to. Um, and so I want to recommend five novels um, that I think, if you want to read them, you should maybe just create more space around the reading experience. So you read them more slowly. Um, and then I will challenge people to nominate some books like this themselves. And the reason for this is because I want some more books to read slowly. Um, I've read a lot of great, elegant writing, and I'd like to find out about some more. Um, okay, so that's the kind of mission. It's about let's not rush to finish every book. Some books require more time. So I'm going to start with this Gilead by Marilyn Moore, who shockingly, the third in this series, didn't make the shortlist of the Booker Prize this year. Gilead is a beautiful novel about a 70-year-old man who's writing a letter to his son, who's very young. He had a child late in life, and he just wants to express um, the moments in his life that he thinks he won't have time to talk to his son about, or his son maybe not old enough yet to understand. And so it's a very meditative, consoling book about death and parenthood and the small events that create our lives. Um, it is so well written. It's almost it makes one as a novelist, it makes one think, well, why bother? As someone said, I think in the Guardian about Leela, the third in the book, her her intelligence is impressed into every sentence, um, and because he is a pastor, a minister, um, it has the sort of the cadences of the King James Bible are there. It's these are not gentle sentences. There is a little bit of you know as though they're kind of hewn out of rock and made beautiful. So with that in mind, I think one should read Gilead very slow. Everyone should read Gilead. Lots of people have. It won the Pulitzer Prize. This is not a niche book, but when you do read it, if you read it, please read it slowly. The second book is Malcolm Lowry's Under the Volcano. This is an extraordinary novel, essentially about being drunk, and being drunk in Mexico in your midlife. And it is the last day of a drunken man during the Mexicans' Day of the Dead. And it is hallucinatory. It is comical. It is tragic. And there is something about how hard won these sentences are. It took him years to write. And he lost stuff. He had, he was so drunk. The writer was a drunkard. He needed his wife to help him just to get the sentences down. She edited it. He rewrote it. He never wrote anything of significance before or after. I don't know. I don't think that's controversial. But this is a novel of such intensity that to read it quickly is either to exhaust yourself or just miss everything. It took me a couple of goes to get started, because it's kind of, there's something sort of oblique about it at the same time. But once you're in its world, it is transforming, and one sees the kind of the dusk of Mexico and the heat of Mexico in a way that no other writer has ever achieved. It is an astonishing book, and I can't wait to read it again. Lots of people have read this. This is the first in a 5 volumes, which are kind of fictional. It feels sort of autobiographical, and I don't know how autobiographical it is, but it's a fictional account of a man. And once again, and I didn't mean to do this, follow one. Malcolm Lowry's a drunkard. The character in this is spends a lot of time as an addict. But the point about this is the damage that a terrible parent can do to a child lasts throughout their years. And this is essentially, they're all quite short, these volumes, but it's essentially experiencing the kind of the psychological damage and the self-harm that someone will do once they've had, once essentially they've been abused sexually, psychologically, physically by a morally abhorrent parent. It is certainly not in any way a misery read. It is funny, but it's also terrifying. There's a pattern here. But in terms of the sort of limpidity of the sentences, the precision of the sentences, Edwardson Albin is just a first class writer. When talking about slow reads and writing, there is no greater novelist than James Salter. I haven't picked light years here. I picked a sport and a pastime, which is how the Quran describes sex. It is, as the New York Times says, a tour de force in erotic realism, but that's not the reason for reading it slowly, although that is a reason. The reason is the sheer perfection and elegance of Salter's sentences. There is no finer writer of the short sentence, and you don't want to waste it, which means just let them hang in the air at the speed at which they might have been written, and this there will be just a wonderful, wonderful experience reading this. And the fifth of my set, is that right? Yes. Behind me in yellow, there are 6 volumes of À la recherche de la temps perdu, or a remembrance of things past, or In Search of Lost Time, whatever you want to call it, by Marcel Proust. Now, of course, to read Proust slowly is to take a year. And I'm saying that when you get to your point in life where you're going to read Proust, as everyone should, take a year. It's so long, it's so involuted, it's so deeply nuanced that to rush it is to mistake the enterprise entirely. And therefore, one has to say, I'm going to give myself up to this. I have done so twice, and it is worth it. It is rewarding in a way that no other literature can be. The nature of its length and the nature of its sentences. Proust is famous for the most extended and involuted sentences that he starts with one thought and then just circles it and circles it and circles it and drills down and moves away and moves back, and then that no nuance is left unexplored, and because of that, the kind of particularity and peculiarity of what it is to be human is reached in a way that no other novelist ever has done. And so one person, through a whole range of characters, talks to us about ourselves to the point where we can't understand how he must know this, how he can know this. And he was writing around the same time as Freud was writing in Vienna. This is set in Paris. And it is not controversial to say Proust is the great psychologist of the early 20th century, not Freud. Freud misunderstood almost everything. And the genius of Proust is he seems to understand everything. So anyway, that's it. Went on a little longer than I wanted to. I'm not sure how to tag people, so I will give it a go. You might just see it and want to do this. I would really appreciate it. Remember, it's just those novels when you recommend people, you just want to say, take your time. That's it. Thank you very much.